Okay, there we go. All right. Sound check real quick. Let me make sure that's working. All right, good. I think the sound's working now. Thanks a lot for tuning in tonight. I hope everybody's having a great weekend. I hope everybody's had a safe Memorial Day weekend so far, and I hope it continues that way for everybody. And I wanted to talk about a couple things real quick before we get started. And the giveaway tonight, for those that stick around, will be a first aid kit. This is from Adventure Medical. Let me get it on the right side. Adventure Medical Kits. They make some pretty good kits, and I'll be giving this away towards the end of the live stream there. So make sure to check that out here in a little bit. But first, before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors here. Friends, we're looking at a full-fledged financial crisis in this country. Inflation is back with a vengeance, and it's going to get worse. The price of food, if you can find any, will soon be through the roof. That's why the smart thing is to buy long-term storage emergency food you can rely on whenever things do go bad. And that's why I recommend My Patriot Supply. They're America's #1 preparedness company, and they've served millions of customers like you. Their mission is your survival, and their food costs just a few bucks per meal. It's delicious too, and stays fresh for up to 25 years. Get some now, and you'll never have to panic if something bad does happen. You'll be fully prepared. Your food arrives quickly and discreetly at your doorstep, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. So go to preparewithseriousurvivor.com right now and save $50 on a 4-week food kit while you still can. That's preparewithseriousurvivor.com. Okay, all right. Unmute my mic there, and it might help. Glad everybody seems to be doing pretty good tonight. Joseph, why don't I upload on other platforms? That's something I really want to get into and start doing more of. I guess time is my major killer. I do work a lot, and but good and bad news. I'm going to be having ACL surgery, which is bad because that means I tore my ACL again, and going to have surgery this time with the titanium wire that goes through my knee, so it should hold together a lot better. But that also gives me a lot of free time on my hands, and I probably will look at some of the other platforms too. I just haven't really gotten into them that heavy yet, but I wouldn't mind expanding a little bit like that. All right, a couple of videos. I got a video that's going to be coming out pretty soon that I think a lot of people might be interested in, and I'm going to share my screen in a minute, show you where you can get some of these. And I'm going to be looking at these magazines here. These are for the, and that's a sticker I put on there. These are for the Glock 17, 19, any 9mm Glock, including the new Glock 45 that's out, which is what I have. I'm going to be testing out the 33 round, the 40 round, and I'm going to be using my Glock 45 that I have right here that I just picked up. It's a Glock 45 9mm. Really nice gun. I love it. I've only had it a couple months, so I put a few rounds through it. So we're going to be testing those magazines through it, but we're also going to be testing them through this Charles Daly PAK 9mm that I got. And another magazine that we're going to be testing also during this is the 50-round drum that you see right here. So we're going to test this 50-round drum in both this AK style 9mm and the Glock 45 that I have right there. And I'll be putting the video out on that hopefully by the weekend. So we're going to be testing them out. And the reason I want to test these out more is because I got a really good deal on these. And I'm going to show you where right here for those that are interested. I'm not affiliated with the site or anything, but I just want to show you because the price here, let me get back to where I was. All right. Because the price of these, you can't really beat. All right. And if you see here, the ones that I'm going to be testing out are the KCI. It's for Glock 17, 19, 26, 34, and also the 45. And these are 33 round magazines, but they're only $14.99. I've got these now, and I'll go ahead and tell you, they feel exactly like the original Glock magazines. I like them a lot as far as the way they feel and the way they load. I just haven't shot anything through them yet because I just got them in the mail the other day. And with the other we'll be testing out is the ETS, the 40-round extended magazine for the Glock pistol, which also fits in this PAK. I got an adapter for the PAK that'll shoot Glock magazines. So we're going to be testing it out too. These, to me, they do not seem as sturdy as the standard Glocks or the KCIs do, but we're going to see how they do. We're going to see how they do. And also, if I can see it down here, the 50 round, I may have passed it, the 50 round drum magazine right here. And we're going to be testing it out also to see how, how easy it is, not just to load, but does it fire all 50 rounds without jamming? Do we have any problems? So I'm going to test it in both the PAK and in the Glock. And I'm going to put about 2 magazines through each one. So I'm going to spend about 300 or 400 rounds testing on this. And hopefully, we'll have some conclusive results and see if these things are worth, that $14.95 or $14.99. Let me put up the, I'm going to go ahead and put up the link for you guys. So let me do that real quick so that if anybody is, interested in these, you can check them out. All right. Okay. Yeah, Joseph, the gun laws in Michigan, they aren't too bad. I have to admit, they aren't too bad. They seem a little bit lax. There is some things I don't like about it. And that's the fact that you can buy or sell, long guns, shotguns, things like that, pretty easy. But when it comes to pistols, the county that I live in, I'm required to register my pistols with the local police department. I don't like that. But that is laws in different counties up here, and that's a law I live in Oakland County, which is a pretty heavily populated county. And the laws here are I'm required to register my pistols, with the local police department. I think that's a little bit of overreach. A lot of people talk about Michigan gun laws being pretty laid back, and they are compared to like New York and New Jersey. But, I come from South Carolina, and this is a whole different story down there. You got your guns, they're your guns. You don't have to really worry about anything else. As long as you can legally pass that background check to get it, then it's yours. You don't have to register it with anybody. All right. A little bit of something I read earlier today. Kim Jong-un from North Korea, their great leader in North Korea, issues an order ordering the elimination of all cats and pigeons to help reduce the coronavirus. That's, I just thought I would share that with y'all. I don't have much more information than what I just said right there, but I found it a little bit humorous on that right there. Okay, so it's the same up there in St. Clair and Macomb County. Yeah. I don't think we should have to, because in reality, when I purchase a firearm, it's already registered with the federal government. Why would I have to go to the local police department and register that? I think that's a little bit overkill. Because, anytime we purchase a gun and we go through a background check, that information is stored. I know as an ex-gun dealer, I was required to keep records pretty much forever of every gun transaction I ever made. So, they've got a record of where the guns go to. I think it's a little bit overkill or overreach, when they start saying you got to register them on a local level, All right, we got a lot of good things to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the vaccine and the passports, and we're going to look at what the states are doing. I'm going to read off all 50 states and what their laws are on the passports. It's not going to take that long to do that, but we're also going to talk about crime, how crime is on the rise, and things that we need to be aware of, and touch on the budget a little bit. This budget that's trying to be passed, there's some good things in it and there's some bad things in it, and I guess a lot of it depends on people's opinion. I think a lot of it is actually good, even though it's an expensive budget, but there's a lot of it that's really going to counteract what's trying to be done in this budget. And then we're going to talk a little bit about China. But I do want to mention one thing about the next Grid Down video that's coming out this week. It'll be the next part in the Grid Down series. I'm going to be talking about the most valuable for most people, the average person, the single most valuable survival tool that you can have. And the thing is, we already got it. And I'm going to talk about different ways we can use it and how it can benefit us and how it could actually save people's lives in the long run. But I'm going to build a little suspense there. I'm not going to say what it is right here. It'll be in the grid down video coming out, hopefully midweek. All right. Vaccine cards and passports. The first thing that I want to mention about vaccine cards is there's a new report come out that Novavax and the other vaccine companies are making an announcement that this fall, they're going to combine the coronavirus vaccine with the flu vaccine. Okay, with the flu vaccine. And here is a link for that. Give me 1 second. Copy. I'm going to put a link there for anybody who wants to check that out. It's a video on YouTube, but it's a news video, and it shows an interview, with the guy from Novavax vaccine. But how often do you really mix different kinds of medication? If this coronavirus was not the flu and was different from the flu, then that's a totally different type of medication that they would be giving people, a totally different vaccine than what the flu vaccine will be. How could you, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but how can you mix these together? You don't normally mix two different types of medication together and give that to somebody in one injection. At least I wouldn't think. I haven't seen that done in my lifetime, and I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore. So it's just sort of odd that the coronavirus vaccine and the flu vaccine by this fall will be one shot. And, I don't know what else to say about that because I'm not a doctor, but we can draw our own conclusions of that. And so I want to talk a little bit more about the vaccine too, because there's a lot of vaccine cards out there for sale. And I've got one right here, and it's like this right here. And you can purchase these, pretty much anywhere. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because of the digital passports that are being talked about. The CDC put out a statement that there's so many, fake vaccine cards out there that they're not sure if they can just trust them anymore. And there's a push made towards, an app or something to that effect for a vaccine passport. And, I have to disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with what they're saying is because, if fake vaccination cards are a problem, I just bought 10 off eBay right here. And guess where they come from? They come from China. That's crazy, ain't it? But I just bought 10 of them. All right. And I can pull up eBay right now and I could buy 10 more. I could buy 100 more if I wanted to. If this was such a problem and this is something that they really thought was going to, cause issues down the future, cause a problem in the future, wouldn't eBay stop selling these? Wouldn't all these other online retailers, refuse to allow people to sell these on there? Why are they still being sold? And the reason is because the more that are out there, the better reason it gives the federal government to actually take over and say, we're going to force everybody to have a vaccine app now, a vaccine passport. So that's what they're trying to do with that. And that's why we're hearing about these cards. You've never heard about fake cards in the past. Kids are required to have certain immunizations to be in school. And I'm sure there's been a lot of fake cards out there. And we've never heard about this in the past, but suddenly now it's a problem. And it's a problem that they won't solve. If fake vaccine cards were a problem, I never should have been able to buy these right here after I read that article. I didn't buy these until I read that article. I was like, oh, well, there's fake vaccine cards out there. Let me check this out. And yeah, there are. And I bought them. And they should have never been out there if this was something they truly were trying to stop. And this just shows us a little bit more about their game here, is they're allowing this out there so that they can push a separate agenda on top of it, and that's the vaccine passports. Now, I want to read off something here, and let me pull up this website. And I want to read off all of the states. Here we go. All right, now I'm going to read this pretty quickly. So you might have to, listen for your state. And what this is going to be is a list of states that are requiring a passport, the states that have banned use of a passport or banned any companies requiring a vaccine passport, and states that are sort of in the middle. Now, this is broken down by basically saying vaccine passports are banned in this state for that particular state. That means that no company can require individuals to prove or to provide proof of vaccination for their goods or services. If vaccine passports are not required in the state, not banned, but not required in that state, then that means individual businesses and other entities can require you to have a passport to come in their business or to do business with them, like airlines and things like that. And then you have the ones that accept or require the actual passport, and we'll see a couple of those. So I'm going to read through these real quick, y'all. Alabama, vaccine passports are banned in this state. Alaska, vaccine passports are not required in this state. And we know that that means that individual businesses can still require you to have that. Arizona, vaccine passports are banned. Arkansas, vaccine passports are banned in this state. California, vaccine passports are not required in this state. Colorado, vaccine passports are not required. Connecticut, passports are not required. Delaware, passports are not required. Florida, passports are banned in this state. Georgia, passports are banned in this state. Hawaii, vaccine passports have been implemented in this state. Starting May 11th, fully vaccinated individuals in Hawaii who upload their proof of vaccination to the state's, quote, safe travels system were allowed to travel inter-county without pre-travel testing and quarantine restrictions. Not intercontinental, not across the seas to another nation, inter-county, from one county to the next. I'm going to put this link up here too, so y'all can check it out, but I'm still going to read through some of the other ones. All right. Idaho, passports are banned. Illinois, not required. Indiana, banned. Iowa, banned. Kansas, not required. Kentucky, not required. Louisiana, not required. Maine, not required. Maryland, not required. Massachusetts, not required. Michigan, not required. Minnesota, not required. Mississippi, not required. Missouri, not required. Montana, passports are banned. Nebraska, not required. Nevada, not required. New Hampshire, not required. New Jersey, not required. New Mexico, not required. New York. Vaccine passports have been implemented in this state. New York has introduced a government-sponsored digital vaccine passport program called the Excelsior Pass. And this smartphone app shows whether someone has been recently vaccinated. All right. North Carolina, not required. North Dakota, banned. Ohio, not required. Oklahoma, not required. Oregon, not required. Pennsylvania, not required. Rhode Island, not required. South Carolina, my home, banned. Vaccine passports are banned in this state. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, a Republican, on May 11th issued an executive order banning vaccine passports in the state. South Dakota, banned. Tennessee, not required. Texas, banned. Utah, partially banned. A bill signed into law by Republican Governor Spencer Cox prohibits the Utah state government from requiring people to get COVID-19 vaccination, but private companies are not forbidden from doing so. So that's saying that private companies can require their employees to get the vaccination. Vermont, not required. Virginia, not required. Washington state, not required. So we're seeing a lot of states that are actually, banning this practice, and they should. I should not be required to get a vaccine for something that, that we all know. We all know the truth. And, this is overreach. It starts to remind you of think about during Reagan, before Reagan and all that, how Russia was, communist Russia. Think about Nazi Germany. You were required to carry papers everywhere you went to prove you were who you said you were, you live where you said you live, to prove you had the right to be walking the streets. And now it may not be papers, it may be some smartphone app that people have to carry to allow them to leave their home, to go from one county to the next, to go into a store, to go buy their groceries. So we're seeing something being implemented, and a couple of states it's already fully implemented, like New York and Hawaii. We saw it's being implemented there now, and a lot of people there are going to be required this. And right now, it doesn't seem like that much. It doesn't seem that bad, but watch as this is going to grow by the end of the year. The restrictions that they place on people who do not have the app may not seem that bad right now, but I guarantee you by the end of the year, these restrictions are going to be very, very severe on people who have not had the vaccine, especially when they combine this vaccine with the flu vaccine. I mean, that right there just tells you something. A lot of people say the coronavirus, was just another form of the flu. That's what a lot of people say. All right. YouTube's probably going to kick me off now, but a lot of people say that. Well, if that was so far-fetched, how could you possibly mix two medications together, one for coronavirus and one for the flu, and give it to somebody at the same time? I'm not a doctor, but, common sense just says you've never done that before. Why can you do it now? Maybe it's because it's the same type of medicine, treating the same thing. I don't know, but I guess we'll see on that as more evidence and more stuff is made available to us. Yep. Yeah, New York's getting pretty severe. And one of the things that's getting severe in cities like that, it's not just what they're doing with the passports, the coronavirus and all that, but look at the crime. Look at the crime that's increased. I want to read a couple statistics right here. And if I can find the right one. All right. Major American cities saw a 33% increase in homicides last year. As a pandemic swept across the country, millions of people joined protests against injustice and police brutality, and the economy collapsed under the weight of the pandemic. But the main thing is 63 of the 66 largest police jurisdictions saw increases in violent crimes from 2020 till now. And this is a pretty severe problem. I mean, if we think about it, I want to read some other numbers off to you right here. And this year so far, from January 1st until now, there have been 241 mass shootings. And mass shootings, as definition of the numbers that I'm using here, is from what's called the mass shooting tracker. And this identifies a mass shooting as to where 4 or more individuals are shot in the same location in the same time frame. So far this year, and we're just through May, 241 mass shootings, 280 dead, and 800 more wounded. Now, this is, it's getting to where we turn on the news every day and we're seeing, another shooting. Somebody else is being shot, something else is being done. And this is very, it sort of reminds me of about 4 or 5 years ago, back during the Obama administration, when we were seeing all these mass shootings take place. There were a lot during Trump too, but it seems like when we look at the numbers this year, this has gone up tremendously in the time frame this year from the time frame, of January to May of last year. This has gone up, I think it's over 50%. And we're seeing this increase on a daily basis. There wasn't, but as I was reading this list, and I'll share that link in a minute, as I was reading this list, through January until now, there was only about 6 or 7 days through the entire 5-month period that there was not a shooting. And, this is largely due to, when we look at the increase in crime that we saw in 2020, the crime really skyrocketed, and now it's skyrocketed even more. This is due to, a lot of it is due to the defund the police movement. And, it's not just the fact that in some cities, they are taking funds from police and they're restricting, what the police can do, where they can go, and, how they will actually do their jobs. But what we really have to think about is this, if you take a soldier, I'm ex-military. I know a lot of people that watch this are, and if any one of us were told we could not, use our weapon in the line of duty, what would that make you feel like as a soldier? When we look at the crime in the streets, I don't want to say police are soldiers, but police have to have a mindset, be prepared to defend themselves and others around them at any given second. And it's not like we live in some perfect world and people are like, well, they should react differently. Well, they shouldn't be called to the same locations day after day after day, dealing with shootings and murders and things like that. You have to take into account the human factor. These guys and gals are just trying to protect themselves for the most part. Sure, there's some bad ones out there, but there's bad ones of everything out there. But for the most part, they're trying to do a profession that most of us won't do. I'm not going to be a cop. And I know a lot of people don't want to be. I don't want that responsibility on me. But, a lot of people do. They enjoy it. They like the job and they try to do a good job. But they're being held back now, held back not just by regulations, by defunding, but held back by the fear that if they actually do their job, they're going to be prosecuted and serve some time in prison and lose, everything they've done that they've done up until that point. And, how can you expect to have a police force that's enthusiastic about doing their job, that wants to do a good job and keep the community safe when they know their hands are tied and they can't truly keep the community safe? The police are now becoming, after the event type of things. It's going to become before too long, if this doesn't slow down, if things don't turn around, it's going to become before too long that police are not going to be able to respond to calls that are being made. And they're only going to show up afterwards, after everything is said and done. Nobody's going to show up in time to stop anything from happening. And it's not their fault. It's the system that this government is putting them in. And how do we expect them to do their jobs with their hands tied is what I'm saying. Yeah, Timothy, that's true. Desensitizing of America. We see a lot of that. You think about it, just the numbers I just threw out there, 241 mass shootings in this year, 241. And, we haven't even had that many days out of the year go by yet because a lot of these happened on the same day, and it's making us to where we turn on the news and we start to see, another mass shooting. We're just thinking, okay, well, there it is again. It doesn't have the effect that it would have had 20 years ago on people because, back then that was news. Now it's just like an everyday occurrence. And it has to make you wonder how much of this is, put out there to work against us. I don't know how else to say that, but how much is simply not true is what I'm going to say on that. All right. Aaron Harris said our military will now win wars with solar energy. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said that about that mask there. Jesus Christ, my King is, look at what they're doing. Does anybody in this world really think that we saw the plexiglass barriers that are in convenience stores now? We see the plexiglass barriers that are in the schools now. We see the walk this way, only walk that way, arrows on the floor in schools and stores. Does anybody really think that's going away? They have conditioned us over the last year and a half to do exactly what we're told. Walk this way. Wear this mask so that, you don't stand out from anybody else. So you just blend in so that, no one really knows what you're thinking, what you're saying. And this, the mask on the face was a test. You're right. It was a test to see who would comply and who would not. And, they know now. They know who's going to comply and who's not going to comply, at least for the most part. I mean, it's been one long test. The aliens will save us. I wasn't going to get into that tonight, but I'm looking forward to seeing what that report the Pentagon's going to put out talking about the UFOs and stuff like that. Is sort of interesting to see what they're going to say, because realistically, if UFOs are visiting our world, we don't stand a chance against them if they got that kind of technology. But I guess we'll wait and see on that. I'd like to read a lot more about that before I throw my 2 cents worth in. Yep. Yeah, I don't wear a mask either. Up here, they passed the in Michigan. It's not if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. So I just don't wear a mask, and I don't, nobody really asks me any questions. And if they do, I'm just going to tell them it's none of their business anyway. Right. So we're seeing this virus that's supposedly such a threat. We're seeing what it's done to our economy and how it's made our crime increase over the last year and into this year, especially this year. The numbers have really went up. They skyrocketed this year. And imagine what the summer is going to be like when it's nice and warm, and everybody doesn't mind rioting again because it's not cold outside. So we're gonna see a lot more violence this summer. And I'm not trying to be negative on that. I hope we don't. I hope I'm wrong. But being realistic about it, we're gonna see it, because we've seen it last year and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed since last year, except Biden become president, but nobody likes Biden. Not even his own side doesn't like him anymore. So, I mean, it's not like anything's changed that's going to make the rioting groups stop rioting. It's going to continue. It's going to continue, and it may very well get even worse this year, especially we think about the amount of police that have retired, the ones that are going to retire, and the ones that may even just quit because they're tired of having their hands tied and tired of being able to not do their jobs. So we're going to see a lot of crazy stuff this summer. I truly believe it. All right. I want to touch real quick on the what's called the new budget that Biden's putting out. I'm not going to get too deep in this because I really want to read all the details before I put out in a video talking about every aspect of it. But there's a lot of talk about it, and that's why I wanted to mention it a little bit. There is one thing though, is the new budget will cause the U.S. We will have to borrow 50 cents of every dollar we spend over the next 6 years. So we're going to have to borrow 50 cents. So if you're talking about a $6 trillion budget, $3 trillion of that is going to be borrowed money by the U.S. government so that they can pay out what they want to pay out to wherever they're paying it out. Now, there are some things in this new bill. There's a new bill coming out right now. That's the infrastructure bill. I think it's actually called the Great American Jobs Plan or something to that effect. And if you read this along with the most recent executive orders that were signed by Biden, then we see a big push towards one thing, and that's unionizing the entire workforce. And even in the most recent executive order, let me bring this up and so that I can give you the exact. Here is a link to the most recent executive orders by Biden. I'm going to put up in the comments here. All right. And one of the executive order is the executive order on worker organization and empowerment. Worker organization and empowerment. And this executive order, I'm going to read you a paragraph from it, if I can find the paragraph. All right. In the past few decades, the federal government has not used its full authority to promote and implement this policy of support for workers organizing unions and bargaining collectively with their employers. During this period, economic change in the United States and globally, technological developments, and the failure to modernize federal organizing and labor management relations laws to respond appropriately to the reality found in American workplaces have made worker organizing exceedingly difficult. So this is basically this executive order. It's not really good, in my opinion. And the reason is because this is not just pushing unions, but it's pushing the federal government's authority over the average worker at your local workplace. So the government, once again, is reaching in. The federal government, once again, is reaching into your local workplace to be able to impose regulations. And this is, you know, we're seeing some bad things happen right now, folks. We're seeing some really bad things happen. If not any one of them is enough to raise alarms, you know, or to raise concern with somebody who isn't paying attention. But when you add all these together, it really is a big problem, especially since the most recent report, and I'll show a document in a minute, shows that China's military has now surpassed ours as far as capability goes. And that's a rating system that's used. I will put that up here in just a minute, but that's a rating system that's used. And we're seeing our country tear itself apart from within while we reduce funding for our military that protects us from things without, you know, outside of our country. We're weakening on every front right now. And it begins with the division in the nation. It begins in here. Yes, Mary, this is the first step to nationalizing jobs. And that's one thing that's really interesting. I read an article the other day, something I wanted to talk more about a little bit later, but they're talking about a universal paycheck system. Great Britain was the ones talking about this, the UK, a universal paycheck system. And basically what this means is due to automation, they're expecting that most workers will be out of work, you know, within the next 10 to 15 years. Most workers will not have a job because robotics will have taken their jobs. And I'll be the first to tell you, as a robotic engineer, you know, you hear all these companies that say, you know, robots aren't taking your jobs. For every job a robot takes, it's creating a new one. And that's just a flat out lie, because a robot can go in there and work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, taking the place of 3, 4, 5 people. And do you think it takes one person to program that robot and run it? No, if it did, they wouldn't buy it. It takes one person to run about 50 robots. So, you know, this is going to impact our workforce. It's already doing it now. I've seen it personally, and it's already doing it now. People are losing their jobs. And right now, it doesn't seem that bad because we've had so many distractions going on other fronts that it's hard to notice this kind of thing, because everybody was out of work last year for the coronavirus. So what everybody's not seeing behind the scenes is that companies are selling robots to these other companies to take the place of these employees, so that if there is another coronavirus, they don't have to worry about it. These robots are going to run the jobs, and robots can do it. If you can do it. Now, there are some things robots can't do, of course. Problem solving. You know, they're not going to troubleshoot themselves if they have a wire come loose or something like that, you know. But as far as performing tasks on an assembly line, as far as loading, unloading, painting, sealing, welding, doing things like that, they do it. They already do it. And they do it very efficiently. And this has taken the place of all of our jobs. And, you know, this is coming. It's a matter of time. So we're being basically, I hate to say it, attacked on all fronts right now. We're being attacked from within. We're watching our children suffer through this simulated pandemic that makes them stay at home to begin with, then makes them stay away from other people. And you think about a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old child, how scared that child must be right now. Even if you sit down with that child and say, hey, you know, it's going to be okay. I love you. It's going to be okay. And that child might look up at you and smile and feel safe while that child is in your arms. But when that child walks away from you and happens to catch some headline on TV talking about 10 million people dead from the coronavirus, you know, that child's scared again. Imagine the environment. You know, I didn't have to grow up in that. You know, I'm grown like y'all are grown. We know what's right and what's wrong, and we know BS when we see it. But a kid don't, you know, a kid takes everything as fact when they first see it. And this has got to be scary for those young kids that, you know, happen to be exposed, even if they're just exposed to it a little bit. But you think about when you put a kid in school now, if it's that kid's first year in school, well, they're walking one direction down the hallway, not talking to anybody, with a mask on their face, going sit in the classroom with plexiglass all around them. And that's their life. That's their life. There is no socializing anymore. They're not allowed to, you know, basically do what we did when we were kids. Hey, Keys, Ryan, how you doing? Dang, Aaron. So DOT changed the rules again for truckers. They're only allowed to drive 500 miles or 8 hours. And then they have to pull over Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that will put a kink in the supply chain that we're already seeing problems with. We're going to be seeing, we're going to be seeing some major shortages coming up. I see a little bit of food shortages. I just built me a new computer. This computer I'm using right here, and you know, it's a pretty good computer. I spent a lot of money on this computer, but I bought half the parts of it, right? Because I was going to build one, that was super fast. So I started buying parts for it February of 2020, before coronavirus pandemic and before supply chain issues. And I still had to buy more parts later, or early this year to finish it up, because it took me that long because everything was closed down. So it had to buy some more parts this year. And I'll use the example, the RAM boards that I plug into it. I got 128 gigabytes of RAM on this system, but I bought 64 gigabytes of RAM and DDR4 RAM, and it cost me about $400 last year. This year, when I bought them early this year, they cost me over $800 for 4 more of them. Same identical sticks of RAM. So we're seeing, I don't want to say a shortage yet on some of that stuff. And some things we are seeing a shortage on, but what we are seeing is a dramatic price increase on a lot of different things. I've seen it. When I first moved to Michigan, which was December of 2019, so that's a year and 6 months ago, gas was a little over $1 a gallon at the store right above where I work at. And I know because that's where I stopped to get it at. Now that same store is over $3 a gallon for gas. So we're seeing this increase. And, that increase doesn't have anything to do with that pipeline hack or ransomware that we saw a while back. That might have drove it up a few pennies, but that's all took care of now. Supply has, returned, supposedly. What we're seeing is an increase in price on everything. And as gas prices go up, we know that all of our other items are going to go up along with it. Yeah, Gilgamesh, it's interesting that you said that. Better build more rail and train if they want to disrupt trucking. And that's a good point, because now that puts something together that I read in that executive order that I talked about. The executive order, I think I put a link up to it a minute ago. No, not the executive order, but the new budget that Biden's proposing. The new budget he's proposing has almost $500 million. Oh, no, excuse me. It's more than that. Let me pull this up. All right, give me 1 second. Right here. I just want to make sure I give you the right numbers on this. Right here. Okay, yeah. All right. Now, in that new budget, they've got like $50 billion going to the National Science Foundation, but they have almost $400 billion going to Amtrak to build new railways and to update their infrastructure so that they can service now like smaller communities, because now you think you can't get on an Amtrak in a small little town, but you can get on an Amtrak in Detroit, But so they want to expand that. In this bill, I want to research it more before I actually really get in depth and talk about it. But there are some good things in it, but there's some pretty bad things too. And one of the bad things that I don't like is the increase in taxes for corporations from 21% to 28%. And I know it's easy to say that the richer people should pay more taxes, but when we really think about it, if you own a company that makes $100 million a year, are you going to want to pay $7 million more a year in taxes? And so that some of these taxes can go to fund and pay Medicaid and Medicare, I should say, to illegal immigrants and stuff like that. There's a lot of things in here that just all go back over to that same thing, immigration and stuff like that. And a lot of companies, that increase from 21 to 28% may be enough to make them say, hey, I'm better off moving my company back to China because I don't have that tax break anymore. I don't have, that incentive to stay here in the US. I got to pay the workers more than I do in China. I got to provide better benefits than I do in China. And now I'm paying more taxes than I would in China. So they're very likely, we're going to see a lot of places move on over, back over to countries like China because the production is cheap there. And it's cheap because they don't have the same labor laws that we have here. Our minimum wage for a lot of people that work in the factories at China, our minimum wage of $7 and something an hour here would be a lot compared to what some people make in some of those factories in China. And that's well documented. Yeah, we're seeing a lot going on. And, it's really, I think this is going to be a pivotal year for this nation. And one of the reasons is, if we go back to China real quick, when we talk about China, just to touch on one thing, there's not a lot of new information out there, but, there's a lot of talk that the virus originated in the Wuhan lab there at China, and there's a lot of evidence backing that up. And sort of interesting to see what the new Biden administration would do about that, if anything. I don't expect them to do anything about it, to be honest with you, because it's already been proven without a shadow of a doubt the ties between the Biden family and China, so I expect nothing to happen there over that. I expect it to just be brushed up under the rug, basically. But there is something that is a concern that's going over there right now, and that's the dispute between China and India. The dispute between China and India. China and India are the two most populated nations in the world. And I'm going to pull up numbers so I don't get this wrong here. And China has a population of 1.439 billion people. India has a population of 1.38 billion people. And the United States comes in third at a population of 331 million people. So you can see the disparity there. We're the third most populous, country in the world, and we have 331 million people. Actually, it's probably closer to 332. And the next up, number two, India, is 1.38 million people. And that's a lot of people. If you add the population of China and India together, then we have about 36% of the world's population in those two countries alone. That's over one third of the world right there in those two countries going to war. And when we start talking about the militaries now, I read one article, and I sort of mentioned it earlier, about how one website is actually ranking China's army and China's military above the U.S. And that's simply based solely on numbers, I do believe. If we look at some other facts or talk about some other facts, then, India has a very powerful military. When we talk about militaries in the world, the most standard model is going to rank the U.S. as number one, Russia as number two, China as number three, and India as number four. So you have number three and number four that very well could be going to war with each other over a border dispute right now. And this is something that we really, have to keep an eye on, have to be aware of, is because China also is very, very strong allies with Pakistan. They have supported each other militarily throughout the years, and Pakistan has even come out and said it supports China on this, on this border dispute with with India here. And this is, this is concerning. If Pakistan gets involved, then it is going to flip the sides. It's going to flip the sides towards China at that point. China and India's military is very, very comparable. They're very strong as far as the number of personnel they have in them. China right now has more ships than any other military in the world. They have more naval vessels than any other military in the world, including us. And they do. Now, we have them outnumbered almost 5-1 on aircraft. We have approximately 14,000 aircraft that can be deployed, and China has almost about 4,000 aircraft that can be deployed. So we have them outnumbered on that aspect. China has a standing army of 2.8 million people. We have a standing army of about and when I say army, I mean entire military, of about 1.1 million active duty people. So this, they have us outnumbered, and on a couple of fronts. Now, one of the things that's concerning about this too is how Russia is stepping in. If you've been watching the news, then you'll see how Russia is sort of stepping in to try to become a moderator or mediator, I should say, in the China-India dispute. And think about this now. You got the two largest nations in the world, population-wise. The largest communist nation in the world, China. The largest democratic nation in the world, India, going against each other. And you have communist Russia stepping in to be the mediator to help try to make peace, as they say, when they're also amassing their troops across the Ukraine border. This is a pretty difficult situation. And one might ask, where are we? Well, we're sitting here at home fighting over whether boys can play in women's sports. And that's something we shouldn't even be fighting over. We're dealing with issues like that when there's this kind of thing going on in the world right now. And we're being preoccupied with, you need to get a vaccine passport. You need to have a vaccine card. We got to, let these boys that don't know who they are play as women in women's sports. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that. And, just is what it is on that. And that's why we are being pushed out of the picture. We were the world's, I don't want to say controlling force. We were the world's most powerful nation for so long. Where are we now? Where are we now? Do you think that other nations in the world look at the United States right now the way that they did 15 years ago, 20 years ago? No. Nations feared our military at that point, and they respected our nation at that point. Now they hate our nation. A lot of them want to destroy it, and nobody fears our military anymore. And it's been because of certain governments, certain administrations dismantling this military. And we had the previous administration attempt to build it up, and now that's being taken down again. And how someone in a role of leadership as the president of the United States can look at the military budget with what's going on in the world and say that this needs to be cut, then that should tell you what he is trying to do to this nation. That is obvious at that point, because there's too much going on in this world to cut our budget for the military. I mean, maybe we don't got the money to raise it, but we could keep it the same and cut some of the other stupid projects that we're giving money to, or some of the other nations that we're giving money to. But this is something that's becoming very serious. We are being pushed out of the picture as a world power. Is what's happening. And one last thing I want to say about the China and India little conflict that we can talk about right now is China has an estimated 320 nuclear weapons. India has 150 nuclear weapons, approximately. But Pakistan has 160 nuclear weapons. Pakistan is allied with India. Is allied with China, excuse me. Pakistan's allied with China. So we could see, we could very well see something break loose over there. I hope not, but we just want to be aware that you have the United States, Russia, number 1 and number 2, nuclear weapons, China, number 3, number 4, Pakistan, number 5, India. So you got all those, the top 5 right there. You got 3 of the top 5 that are basically in conflict with each other right now. And the last time, the last time they fought over the same issue, China and India actually went through this back, spent a few decades back, fought over this same issue. That India basically gave way at that point. But India now has a much stronger military, and they have troops massed upon their border. I don't think that there's going to be a back down. It's going to be easy this time. And India has the advantage right there because China does have to occupy that land, and they are defending it. But I guess, time will tell, and we're going to see what happens on that. All right. Does China's military run on solar energy too? China has more solar farms in the world than any other country. They actually have a lot, and China's military is investing heavily in robotics. They're investing very heavily in robotics, and we're not just talking about little robots that drive things around and carry cargo from here to there. You're talking about robots that are mounted with weapons. Things go much longer. This is going to be a thing of the future that we could see on the battlefield, and we will see on the battlefield one day, and that's robotic soldiers or robotic exoskeletons that our soldiers wear. All of this is already out there. And we can see it on the internet. And if we see it on the internet, imagine what they got behind the scenes. So this is going to be a highly technological war. And, if it were to happen, and China has already said that biological warfare is going to be the type of warfare that the world experiences in World War III. And I put up a link to that one on my previous video if anyone wants to check that out. Wow. Cronin, parts of Canada suspended local elections. I haven't heard about that yet. All right. Well, we got something to give away here tonight, and it's going to be this Adventure Medical first aid kit here. And if you're familiar with Adventure Medical, I bought a few of their stuff in the past, and I picked this up. And they always make good quality stuff. One of the things I like is we open this up and you look in it here, you'll see, it's a standard, first aid kit, but it's all decent. It's all good, good quality products. So I think you'll enjoy it. Well, hopefully you don't enjoy it. Hopefully you never have to use it. But if you do, I hope it helps you out. So we're going to do it the way we always do our giveaways here. And I'm going to write down a number. And that number will be between 1 and 100, but don't type your answer in until I type in go. So between 1 and 100. And I'm going to fold it in half. And go. All right. Oh, I hear you, Keys. Ryan? Oh, hold on. I lost track. Oh, nobody yet. Some people close. Some people close. Oh, real close, real close. I can't say who, but very close. There we go. William Gandy. Let me scroll back up. The number was 25. Number was 25. So let me scroll back up here and make sure. I might have to find it. It might take me just a second. Now, there we go. William Gandy. William. All right, William, you have won the prize tonight. So email me at survivor@SiriusSurvivor.com. Email me there and, with your mailing address, and I'll get that prize out. And tomorrow's a holiday, so it'll be Tuesday. And, tomorrow's a very important holiday, and a lot of people lose sight on that. And I was watching some things on TV today and all, and I see a lot of people, just like happy holidays, and that's good, but we have to we have to really put it in perspective what this holiday is about. This holiday is about honoring those who have given the ultimate sacrifice, so that we can sit here and do what we're doing tonight. None of us will be where we are if those people had not given that ultimate sacrifice. Now, that is a moment for us to celebrate. But it's also a moment to be solemn and think about, the sacrifices that we're given, the families, the families that were broken apart because of those sacrifices. And not just the ones who died, but the ones who were injured. A lot of people will lose an arm, they'll lose a leg, they'll lose, sight, they'll lose a lot, they'll become paralyzed. And these people make a sacrifice just as solemn, just as strong as those who have, passed away from it, because they're living with this now, and so are their families. And, we need to really just make sure, that we think about what the holiday really means. Let's go drink a couple beers tomorrow. But all in all, it's something that is really serious. for those that gave that ultimate sacrifice. Some of them are in the grave now, have moved on to a better place, and some of them are still with us, and they're suffering every day. Some of these people are suffering every day, and they need to be remembered and they need to be thought of. So I want to say thanks a lot, for listening to me tonight. I hope the information helps out. Now, the grid down video, like I said before earlier, I'm going to have the best survival tool that you can have on it. And most people already have it, and multiple ways to use it. But I'm not going to spoil it until that video. But I hope everybody has a great day tomorrow. I really do. I hope you all have a great night tonight. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless. And for now, Seer Survivor out.